Alright, what is up YouTube? Space Captain here with another battle report of Warhammer Age of Sigmar Skirmish. Today we have the High Elves versus the Undead. Today is the third game of our campaign, this particular campaign that we've been doing. In the first two battles, my general was the Anointed of Assyrian. In the first battle, he was chosen by the king. Basically, that's why he's anointed. And he was in travel, basically. And then all of a sudden there was this ambush, the assassination, because the undead were trying to kill him. So, in that battle, he wound up getting away, but there was a curse on his head. The undead spared him because they deemed that it wasn't the right time to kill him. They stopped themselves at the last moment as he was getting away, and basically had hex wraiths and Karn wraiths pursue and fly through my remaining men, placing a curse on their head. So basically, my anointed, he didn't die, but now he's marked. Now they know his every movement. They know where he's going to be. In the second battle of the campaign, the Anointed came at the Undead because he realized, this needs to end now. Unfortunately, the Undead were able to prevail and wound up claiming the body of the Anointed of Assyrian. So they claimed his body so that they could use it for whatever ritual they deemed fit. They claimed his soul, so he has not returned to the warp with his brethren. The setup for this battle is that the Anointed, being a prince and of high stature, after news of his death, there was a sister of his who basically, a queen, who vowed to seek vengeance for her fallen brother. So that's the setup for this. Now I have a new general because my old general died. I know that doesn't usually happen, but that's what we're going with. And now this is a party, a warband, who is trying to avenge his death by claiming the undead soul of the Ghoul King who slew him. So pretty fun. This leads us basically to the beginning of the scenario and why we are clashing at dawn. The Elves decided to come in to basically the lair of the undead, or at least around where they were said to have been by their informants, by their hawk agents, by the elven eyes all around. And after news of this, the undead get wind of it, and they cast an early morning fog over the land to conceal their numbers. So with Fog of War, there's this no man's land. Each unit individually is rolled for and put into the quadrant, as opposed to choosing a side and setting up one at a time. This is definitely strange, because strategy all falls down to luck, in the sense that you develop your strategy with what you have after having people be randomly placed. Unless you roll a 5 or a 6, then you can choose. But it can get really crazy. I don't suggest starting the placement with your general, because, you don't want the enemy to know that he's there. Or who knows, maybe it'll actually be part of your plan. As Skaven, I have a lot of issues with this, but as Elves, it seems fun. Seems very, very wacky. So, one change that we did, though, is that there's an alternative, where if you roll a 5 or a 6, you're able to have your units come on as reinforcements. So, with this secondary, we went ahead and rolled off, having that in mind. Here is the board. I have a few sword masters over here in the bottom portion. Sword master and a standard over here in the bottom right, up top. His grave guard are over here in this little building. Sorry for the blurry picture, y'all. I believe this is his White King. A Crypt Horror, and I believe also a Blackguard. And I have my Anointed of Assyrian, and not on the actual screen, but over here I have an Illyrian Reaver. So this is the board set up. We have a lot of our units basically in reserve, and here we are with the reserve. I rolled, and my Reaver captain, he wound up having to come into reserve, or I chose to have him instead of choose where he goes. 4 sword masters, one of them being the Hornblower, and 3 Lothern, also one of them being the Hornblower. So my reinforcements are dun, 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 dun. And over here he has his general, the Ghoul King. He has him in reserve, as well as a Crypt Horror and 3 of his Grave Guard. So the thing about this Crypt Horror, he is the Captain Crypt Horror, and the way that we signify that is that he has a body gouged onto one of his protruding spikes. As far as this lore goes, that's my Anointed of Assyrian, basically just put on his back. They already have a soul, so his body isn't really much use to them, but the elves want it as closure. So the objective for me, a secondary objective, not really mattering if it's, it doesn't come into play whether or not it's a, major victory or minor victory, but I am trying to kill that Crypt Horror for my own vengeance. So here we have the map again, and turn 1, we roll off. Actually, I believe he goes first because he had less models. Whatever. So, on his turn, he decides to deploy all of his reserves in this one spot. You may not necessarily see where they are at the moment, but he deploys them. They go ahead and charge over to where my Swordmaster is and my Reaver, and I believe this is the only charge that's made. Winds up killing him, and now it's my turn to move. Over here in the bottom right, these are all of my reinforcements, all stacked right here, because you have to be at least 9 inches away to bring your reinforcements on. So, all of my Swordmasters, I wind up having them run over here to try and intercept his Ghoul King, and also give my guys some support, because that is a very, very hefty bottom portion of the map. Over here I have my Dragon Noble, who is basically just over here, hoping to get into combat with the Ghoul King, or whatever he really can. And up here, you might see this little mage on a horse. This is actually my general now. This is kind of strange, because also I only have a vision of 12 inches on turn 1. On turn 2, I'll have 18 inches of vision, so as far as elves are concerned, that's almost full range, except for the Dragon Noble's bow, which is 20 inches. But, so over here, I have the Reaver, which was really close to him. He runs up here, getting ready to try to take some shots. Over here, we get into position. These guys stay over here trying to take some shots, possibly block up, and I'm trying to really move the Ghoul King over to the left to reestablish my battle line. So after some shooting, you'll see that that Reaver who was here winds up running up this ladder after his shot. I believe he wound up rolling 9 inches away because you can flee after or before you shoot. Well, not flee, but make a movement of a 2 dice roll. Anyway, so with all of my shooting, I wind up putting 2 wounds onto that Crypt Horror. I'm going to call him Captain. I know that's not necessarily what his name is, but he's basically the champion of the Crypt Horrors. So that's all of my shooting, and I hold off on charging. So here it is. Just look at this. Look at all these painted models. It just looks so good. Anyway, so that is the end of turn 1. Here we have a roll-off for turn 2, and the Undead actually wind up getting the second turn. So, here we are. I did not get a double turn like I wanted, but c'est la vie. The guys at the bottom basically wind up, his captain winds up charging into my Reavers, trying to break them, and his 3 Graveguard try to make a charge over to my Lothern, and wind up, basically one of them didn't make it, but the other 2 get in. It winds up being quite a pillow fight. I think he winds up killing 1 Lothern in the bottom right, but then again he's only attacking the 2 guys anyway. It took me literally all of those elves there to kill those 2 Graveguard. That was pretty intense. And the Crypt Horror wound up killing off 1 Reaver, but the Dragon Noble winds up coming in and slaying the Crypt Horror. I believe he healed 1 wound, and then the Dragon Noble and the horse wound up doing 3 wounds to him, knocking him out. So, he's fine, I'm fine. I have reclaimed the body of my fallen, so it's a pretty good start to turn 3. Also, we roll off and I get the first turn. So, I wind up getting a double turn, which actually isn't too bad for me. I wind up consolidating my Reavers, trying to bring my Mage over and see if he can kind of come into the battle, see if I can possibly do some mortal wounds, you know, a couple things. So I do wind up trying to do some spells, and I do 1 mortal wound, I believe, to the White King. But, nope, no I don't. No I don't. So, in this combat right here, I wind up charging all of my guys in. And as you can see, there are a few missing Lothern, but that's okay, that's what they're for. The Dragon Noble winds up getting a wound on him, but the Ghoul King himself winds up getting a wound put on him. So I'm thinking, alright, good. If I can get steady rounds of combat, not die, have Swordmasters reroll their 1s, 3s and 3s, -1 rend, I'll be good. So, on his turn, I'm not sure how we wound up making this happen, but somehow he breaks from combat with his Ghoul King and runs away. So, he winds up doing 2 wounds to my Dragon Noble in, you know, this phase, and I wind up doing 2 wounds to his Crypt Horror over there, one of the remaining ones. He tries to shimmy some of his guys, and basically I'm getting ready for a charge from his Ghoul King. So, he brings his White King over after I wind up basically killing off his remaining Crypt Horror. I lose 1 Lothern. But then we have somewhat of a pillow fight as far as the 2 charges are concerned. The Karn Wraith right here wound up making an ethereal charge into one of my blocking Swordmasters, and also the White King made a pretty hefty charge. Unfortunately, his Graveguard behind him was not able to actually make that charge, so they're going in with 2 guys instead of 3, but I mean they're still both pretty good models, so we will see what happens. I also wind up doing a wound to the White King, I believe because of my mortal wounds. I cast an arcane bolt earlier this turn, and I do believe that that went off, causing 1 wound, but it's not really much of a big deal for him. Roll for turn 4. The Undead choose the first turn. Uh-oh. So he gets a double turn. Winds up coming in here. Tries to make a charge with one of his Graveguard. And with this combat, I actually wind up killing the White King. And that's pretty much it. The way that this game type goes is that once a warband is brought down to 50% of their models, they break. I had no idea that I had brought him down to that. He was 1 guy away, and I wound up killing his White King with the Dragon Noble. Whoa. I did not see that victory coming. Turn 4, it is actually a High Elves victory. And that's my Anointed in the background. He is no longer of this world, but we retrieved his body, so that's a pretty good thing. Going over to MVPs. For me, definitely as the High Elves, it's always going to be the Reavers. As long as you bring them, they are so versatile. And also, if they wind up not really performing much, usually based off of positioning, they wind up still paying for themselves in points. Swordmasters, reroll 1s, hitting 3s and 3s, -1 rend. That is pretty awesome. I do really enjoy my Swordmasters. Dragon Noble, he definitely came to do some work today. He is making 3 attacks, hitting on 3s, wounding on 3s, with a -1 rend and D3 damage. So with just him and not the horse, that is a potential to possibly do 9 wounds with a -1 rend. Well, a -1 rend that potentially would do 9 wounds. And then also he has his horse. He has a bow to do 3 shots, 20-inch range, hitting on 3s, wounding on 3s, no rend, 1 damage, but that's a pretty good model for the High Elves, definitely, Dragon Noble. So I may or may not ever bring a list without a Dragon Noble in the future, just because I think that they are more valuable to me than having a mage. But that's just my take on it. MVP for the Undead, definitely the extended range to bring up armor saves, as well as the rerolls on the attacks for the Crypt Horrors. That is definitely really good. So as long as he's within a certain radius of his Ghoul King, his Crypt Horrors completely change and are very well behaved. His Ghoul King, not only does he do a lot of attacks, not only is he freaking awful to try and kill because he can just come back, but he just is a bubble machine. I mean, he confers so many bonuses onto everyone. He is definitely top-notch. Also, the White King. He is very, very scary. And I would not have taken him out unless I had the Dragon Noble with the horse doing a bunch of damage. That just... I mean, he went out very quickly, but he can do a lot of work, and he definitely maneuvered me around because I was afraid of going into base-to-base contact with the White King. But overall, because of the rules of the map, since he was taken down to 50%, it was a High Elf victory. And, yeah. So, thanks for watching, y'all. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, anything we can do better, just let me know. If you think we did anything wrong, again, just let me know. And until next time, keep on wargaming. Thanks, y'all.